The text came in at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I remember the time because I'd just finished loading the dishwasher and was about to take my contacts out. My phone lit up on the bathroom counter, screen reflecting in the mirror, and I picked it up expecting a work thing. It was my sister. Hey. So I know this is awkward, but the venue capped us at 80 and we had to make some really hard calls. You're not on the final list. I hope you can be understanding about this. We love you. I read it 3 times. Each time it got smaller, like the words were shrinking on the screen. We love you. The we was what got me. Like she'd already merged with him into a single unit that no longer included me. I sat down on the edge of the bathtub. My fiancé was in the bedroom watching some documentary about deep-sea fish, and I could hear the muffled narration through the wall. I thought about going in there and showing him. I thought about calling her. I thought about a lot of things. What I actually did was open Instagram, because some part of me needed to see if she'd already announced it somewhere. If there was a whiteboard photo or a save-the-date carousel or anything that would explain how the woman whose hand I held during her divorce 3 years ago had typed those sentences with a clear conscience. There was nothing on her grid. But there was a story from earlier that evening, a boomerang of her clinking champagne glasses with our mother and her future mother-in-law, all of them in matching silk pajamas at what looked like a hotel suite. The caption said, "Bride Tribe Brunch turned slumber party. Final head count lock-in tonight." With a little checkmark emoji, final head count lock-in. That's what the text was. A logistical footnote to the slumber party she hadn't told me about. My name is Whitney Halverson. I'm 29. I work as a senior data analyst for a healthcare nonprofit in Denver, and I've been engaged to my fiancé Connor for 14 months. My sister is 2 years younger than me, and until that Tuesday night, I would have told you we were close. Not in a texting, everyday way, but in the way that mattered. I helped her get her first apartment. I drove 11 hours to pick her up from a bad relationship in Albuquerque without asking her to pay for gas. I lent her $16,000 8 months ago when her wedding deposit windows were closing and her credit card got declined, and she promised she'd pay me back after the honeymoon. I'd already mentally written that money off. What I hadn't done was mentally write off being her sister. I walked into the bedroom and Connor looked up from his laptop. He has this thing where he can tell from my face within about 2 seconds whether something is wrong, and his expression shifted before I even said anything. What happened? I handed him my phone. He read it. He read it again. He set the phone down on the comforter very gently, like it might detonate, and said, "I'm gonna need you to walk me through how this is possible. I don't know. You paid for her venue. I know. Have you called your mom?" I hadn't. I did then, sitting on the foot of the bed with Connor's hand on my knee. My mother picked up on the 3rd ring, sounding like she'd been waiting for it. "Sweetheart, before you say anything, your sister is under enormous pressure right now. Mom, she's not inviting me to her wedding. It's a very small ceremony. They had to cut a lot of people. She invited Aunt Maribel. Aunt Maribel has not spoken to her in 4 years. Aunt Maribel called her a..." I stopped, because my mother was going to interrupt me anyway. "Whitney, I'm not going to do this with you tonight. Your sister has been through a lot with this planning, and the last thing she needs is you making it about yourself." There it was. The phrase, the one she'd been deploying since I was 8 years old and skinned my knee at my sister's birthday party and got told to go inside so I wouldn't bring down the mood. "Mom, I paid for the venue, and that was very generous of you. Whitney, please, don't do this, not tonight." I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say I'd call her back. I just took the phone away from my ear and tapped the red circle, and the screen went dark, and I sat there staring at the carpet. Connor said, very quietly, "What do you want to do?" I thought about it. I thought about the wedding being 2 weeks away. I thought about how I'd already taken the days off work. I thought about all the times in my life I'd swallowed something to keep the peace, and how that swallowing had compounded into something that lived in my chest now, a kind of permanent low-grade ache. "I want to go somewhere," I said. "I want to go somewhere and not be reachable." He got up and walked into the closet. I heard him pull down the suitcase from the top shelf. Where? I don't know. Somewhere I've never been. Pick 3. I picked Lisbon, the Amalfi Coast, and a place called Ile de Ré off the western coast of France that I'd read about in a magazine at the dentist's office once. He sat next to me on the bed with his own laptop and started looking at flights, while I just sat there, not crying, not really feeling anything, just holding my phone in my lap and watching it light up over and over with notifications I didn't open. By midnight, we had a flight to Lisbon, 3 nights at a hotel in the Alfama district, and then 4 nights at a small inn on the coast in a town called Ericeira, that he'd found because the photos looked like cliffs and white houses and absolutely no one I was related to. He booked it on his card. I told him I'd transfer the money. He told me to shut up. I deleted my sister from my favorites that night. Not blocked, just demoted. It felt like a small surgical thing. I plugged my phone in across the room so I wouldn't keep checking it, and I lay down and did not sleep until almost 4 in the morning. And when I did sleep, I dreamed about being late to a meeting I didn't know the location of. We flew out Thursday afternoon. I didn't tell anyone where we were going. I told my boss I had a family emergency and needed to take the rest of the week plus the following week, and she didn't push. I turned my phone on airplane mode in the Uber to the airport and just left it there. Lisbon hit me sideways. I wasn't expecting it to. I'd done the booking in a fog and arrived in another fog, and I think I was prepared to be miserable in a pretty place, the way you sometimes are when grief travels with you. But the city did this thing, the tiles on the buildings, the trams that went up streets so steep they shouldn't have been streets, the way the light came in low and amber off the river in the late afternoon. We walked for hours that first day. We ate clams and white wine and garlic at a tiny restaurant where the owner kept bringing us extra bread and refusing to let us pay for it. We climbed up to a viewpoint at sunset and watched the whole city turn pink. And I realized I'd been holding my shoulders up around my ears for so long that they ached when I finally let them drop. I turned my phone on the second morning, just for a minute. I had 47 notifications. I scrolled through them without opening any. 3 were from my sister. 11 were from my mother. 2 were from my father, which was unusual. My dad and I are close. But he doesn't really do digital communication. He mostly just shows up at things. The rest were from a mix of relatives and 1 from my future brother-in-law's mother, which made my stomach turn in a way I didn't want to examine. I took a photo of the breakfast Connor had ordered for us on the hotel terrace. Pastéis de nata, 2 espressos, a glass of fresh orange juice, the red rooftops of the city spread out behind. I posted it to Instagram with no caption, no hashtag, just the picture. Then I turned the phone off and went to take a shower. By the time we came back from dinner that night and I checked again, the post had 82 likes and a flood of comments from people I hadn't talked to in years. Where are you? This is gorgeous. Hope you're okay. I didn't respond to any of them. I scrolled past until I found the one I knew would be there, and it was a comment from my sister, deleted before I saw what it said, but still showing up as. This comment was removed by the author. She'd written something and then thought better of it. I closed the app. The 3rd day in Lisbon. Connor and I took a day trip to a town on the coast where there was a palace with these strange round towers. And on the way back, I made a decision that I now think of as the line in the sand. I opened my notes app on the train, and I wrote down everything I had ever paid for, helped with, or covered for my sister in the last 5 years. Not because I was planning to send it to her. Just because I wanted to see it laid out. The number at the bottom, not counting the venue loan, was somewhere around $23,000, plus the venue, plus the deposit on her first apartment that she'd never paid back, plus the time, the hours, the weekends I'd driven down to help her move, the holidays I'd hosted because she didn't want to, the dinners I'd organized for our mother's birthdays that my sister had taken credit for in the family group chat. I looked at it for a long time. Then I closed the notes app and didn't open it again. The wedding was supposed to be that Saturday. We flew from Lisbon to the coast that morning and got to the inn at Ericeira by early afternoon. The room had a balcony that looked directly out at the Atlantic. The wind was strong. There was a pot of tea waiting for us on a little table outside, and a plate of these almond cookies that crumbled the second you bit into them. I went to the balcony and just stood there for a while, watching the water. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone started buzzing. I'd left it on the bed. Connor came in from the shower and looked at it. "Whitney." "What?" "Your phone is going off." "Don't tell me what it says. I don't want to know." He didn't. He turned it face down. We went to dinner at a restaurant the innkeeper had recommended, a place built into the rocks with the waves visible through a wall of windows. We had grilled sardines and a bottle of Vinho Verde, and I felt almost normal for about an hour and a half. When we got back to the room, my phone had 31 missed calls. I turned it off. I should say here that I am not someone who is good at not knowing things. In my work, I am paid to find patterns in numbers. I like information. I like resolution. The act of turning the phone off was harder than anything I had ever done in my adult life, and I lay awake for a long time wondering what could possibly justify 31 missed calls. I had a few theories. None of them were correct. Sunday morning, Connor went down to get coffee and brought it back to the room. He had this look on his face. He set my coffee down and said, "I don't know if you want to see this or not, but I think you need to know it exists." He handed me his phone. He was logged into TikTok, which he never uses. The video was already queued up. It was shaky vertical footage, clearly filmed by a guest. The location was unmistakable. The venue I had paid the deposit on, the one with the long wooden beams and the view of the mountains. The camera was pointed at the front of the room, where my sister stood at the altar in a dress I'd helped her pick out at a boutique in Boulder 6 months ago. Her face was red. Her veil was off, balled up in her hand. There was no groom. Off camera, a male voice, my father's, I realized after a second, was saying, very loudly, "Where is he? Somebody find out where he is." And then my sister screaming, I don't know where he is. Stop asking me." The video cut. Another one autoplayed. Same venue 10 minutes later. The groom's brother on the phone, pacing. My sister sitting on the steps of the altar, mascara running, talking to my mother who was kneeling in front of her. The audio caught my mother saying, "Honey, we'll figure this out, but you have to tell me what happened. Why would he?" And my sister, voice cracking, "It's not my fault. I didn't do anything. I don't know why he's like this." I have heard my sister say, "It's not my fault," so many times in our shared life that the phrase has its own muscle memory in my body. I heard it when she broke our grandmother's clock. I heard it when she rear-ended a parked car in high school. I heard it when she got fired from her job at the marketing firm in Phoenix and our mother flew down to help her pack her apartment. I sat on the bed in Arishara holding Connor's phone. I watched the video twice. I watched the second video 3 times. I handed the phone back. "There are more," he said. "How many more?" "A lot." I didn't ask to see them. I went into the bathroom and ran the shower and just stood under it for a long time. When I came back out, he had set the phone face down on the dresser. He didn't say anything. He just held his arms out. And I sat in his lap on the edge of the bed and put my face against his neck and didn't cry, because I genuinely could not figure out what I was feeling. We took a walk on the beach after that. The wind was cold. I had a sweatshirt on over my dress. We didn't talk for a long time and then I said, "Why did he leave?" "I don't know. There has to be a reason. There probably is. I don't think it's our job to find out." I thought about that for the rest of the walk. By Sunday night, the hashtag had a name. Connor showed me, very reluctantly, only because I asked. Someone had figured out the family name from the venue's tag posts. The hashtag was a play on my sister's last name in the word wedding. It had 400,000 views. By Monday morning, it had 900,000. By Monday evening, it had crossed 2 million, and it was no longer just the original wedding videos. People had started reposting older content my sister had on her public accounts of video from 2 years ago where she'd talked about being the favorite growing up. A now deleted post from a wellness account she'd briefly run where she'd described her family as the most loving and supportive in the world. Strangers were stitching these together with the wedding footage. It was, I have to admit, devastating to watch. The reason the groom left came out Monday afternoon, and not from my sister. His best man, who apparently had not signed anything because nobody signs anything at a wedding, did an interview with a wedding drama podcast that had been blowing up his DMs. He said the groom had found out, the morning of the wedding, that my sister had told her own bridesmaids that she was only marrying him for the lifestyle. One of the bridesmaids was the groom's cousin. The cousin had told the groom. The groom had spent the morning trying to confront my sister, who had brushed it off and told him he was being insecure. He had walked down the aisle anyway, gotten halfway, and turned around and left. That was on the podcast Monday at noon. By Monday at 5, the podcast clip had been turned into shorts on every platform. Tuesday morning, my phone, which I had turned on once just to set an alarm, vibrated with a text from a number I didn't have saved. "Whitney, this is your Aunt Maribel. I know you and I haven't been close, but I need to tell you that your mother has been telling people at the venue that you sabotaged this wedding from abroad. I don't know what that means, but I thought you should know. I'm sorry about your sister. I'm sorry about everything." I read it twice. I showed it to Connor. He said, "Block the family group chat." I did, not just muted, blocked the group, blocked my mother's number, blocked my sister's number. I left my father's unblocked because some piece of me still wanted to hear from him, although he hadn't called since the wedding. I think he didn't know what to say to me. He was raised by a man who didn't say things, and he's gotten better over the years, but in a crisis he reverts. I posted one more photo that week. It was a shot Connor had taken of me on the cliffs at Arashera, looking out at the water. I'm not facing the camera. My hair is going sideways in the wind. I look small and the ocean looks huge. The caption was, "Best decision I made this year was not asking permission." I went to bed that night and slept for 10 hours. When I woke up, the post had 30,000 likes. A woman I'd known briefly in college, who worked in PR in New York, sent me a message Wednesday morning that said, very simply, "I don't know what's going on, but if you need to make a statement, let me know, and I'll do it for free." I didn't reply, but I saved the message. That afternoon, a producer at a daytime talk show DM'd me asking if I'd come on the following week. A magazine reached out about an essay. A podcast host I actually respected, one I'd been listening to for years, sent a thoughtful 3-paragraph message that essentially said, "There's a story here that nobody is telling, which is the story of what people like you have been carrying, and I'd be honored to host it if you ever want to." I didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. I read the messages and I closed the apps and I went and ate dinner with Connor on the inn's terrace. The thing nobody had mentioned in any of the coverage was the money. Until Thursday. A woman who had worked at the venue posted a TikTok. She wasn't trying to start anything. She was trying to defend herself because there were rumors floating around that the venue had somehow been complicit in the wedding falling apart. In her video, in passing, she said, "Also for the record, the bride didn't even pay for this venue. Her sister paid for it. We have the records. The sister wasn't even at the wedding." I have no idea how that woman knew I wasn't at the wedding. Probably from the same TikTok footage everyone else was watching. The point is, it landed. By Friday morning, the dominant version of the story online was no longer "bride gets jilted at altar." It was "bride uninvites sister who paid for venue gets jilted at altar." The shift was, frankly, breathtaking. I watched it happen in real time on Connor's phone while we sat on our balcony in Arashera with cups of black coffee, and at one point I started laughing, and I couldn't stop for about 3 minutes, and Connor just sat there waiting it out. "Is this funny?" he said when I finally calmed down. "No," I said. "It's not funny. It's not anything. I don't know what it is." The text started up again that day, this time from numbers I didn't recognize. People had gotten my number somehow. I don't know how. A cousin probably, or someone at my mother's church. I turned the phone off and put it in the drawer. We extended the trip. Connor called the inn and asked if we could stay another 5 nights, and they said yes. He called my office on his phone and explained I'd had a death in the family, which wasn't technically true, but wasn't technically untrue either, and my boss said take whatever time you need. The phone call from my father came on the 8th day. I had finally turned my phone on to look at a map, and it rang while I was holding it. I answered without thinking. Whit. Dad. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing. My father is 64 and he has emphysema and he doesn't like phones. I just wanted to know you were okay. I'm okay. Your mother is not handling this well. I imagine. Your sister is at our house. She's in a bad way. I'm sorry to hear that. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Whit, I should have called you on Tuesday. The night it happened. The night she texted you. I knew about it before she sent it. Your mother told me I should have called you and I didn't, and I want you to know that I know that. I'm sorry. I sat down on the bed. I didn't know what to say. My father has apologized to me maybe 4 times in my life. Real apologies, not the social ones. This was one of them. Dad. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to tell you. And I want you to know that what your mother is saying isn't what I'm thinking about anything, okay? I'll talk to you when you're ready. Take all the time you need. He hung up. I sat there. Connor came in from the balcony and looked at me and didn't ask. And I told him what my dad had said, and his eyes got a little wet, which Connor's eyes never do. That was the call that broke whatever was still frozen in me. I cried for about an hour after that, not from sadness exactly, from something more like the release of having held something heavy for a very long time and suddenly being told I could put it down. We came home 2 weeks after we'd left. I had 3,000 unread emails and 40 voicemails I deleted without listening to. I went back to work. I gave a brief, factual update to my manager, who told me HR had received some outside inquiries about my employment status, which she had ignored. I told her I appreciated that. She said, Whitney, take this how you want, but I think you handled this well. I would not have. I never sent my sister any of the messages I drafted in my head. I never replied to the eventually arriving paragraph-long apology she texted me from a new number 3 weeks later. I read it once, and then I deleted it, and blocked the new number too. The venue refunded part of the deposit, which was unexpected. Apparently, the wedding's cancellation triggered some clause I hadn't read. I got $6,000 back. I used it to pay for half of a couple's weekend in the mountains with Connor. The $16,000 she owed me, I will never see. I know that. I've made peace with it. Some money is the price you pay for an education. A few months after we got back, I did one interview. Just one. The podcast host who had sent the thoughtful message. I went on her show and I talked for about 90 minutes, not about my sister specifically, not about the wedding, but about what it's like to be the family member who carries the load nobody acknowledges, and what it costs, and what it takes to put it down. The episode dropped on a Tuesday. By Friday, it had been downloaded 600,000 times. The DMs that came in after that were the part that changed me. Thousands of them. Women who had been quietly paying for things, fixing things, being managed and minimized for years. A nurse in Ohio who had been bankrolling her brother's apartment for a decade. A teacher in Maine whose mother had used her credit card for a vacation she hadn't been invited on. A woman my age in Atlanta who had not been invited to her own niece's baby shower because she made people uncomfortable by being unmarried at 33. I didn't reply to all of them. I couldn't. But I read every single one. My mother has not spoken to me in just over a year now. My sister had her wedding eventually, a much smaller one, to a different person, about 10 months after the original. I was not invited. I did not expect to be. I sent nothing. I attended nothing. I attended nothing. We did it on a Tuesday afternoon at the courthouse. Just me and Connor and my father and my best friend from college and her husband and Connor's brother. My dad walked me in. He cried. My mother was not told. My sister was not told. We posted a single photo on Instagram 3 days later, after we'd already left for our honeymoon, and the comments were almost entirely from people I'd never met. Women who said some version of, I see you, I'm proud of you, congratulations. That was enough. There's a thing I want to say to anyone who finds themselves in the position I was in. You're going to be told that you're making it about yourself. You're going to be told you're overreacting. You're going to be told that family is family, and that the people who love you wouldn't actually mean it the way you're taking it. Listen to me carefully. People show you who they are with, the small things first. The slumber party they didn't tell you about. The text sent at 11:47 on a Tuesday. The phrase, "we love you," attached to an action that is not love. You are not required to attend a wedding you weren't invited to. You are not required to forgive in the timeline anyone else sets for you. You are not required to interpret a removed invitation as anything other than what it is, which is information. I paid for a venue I never saw. I missed a wedding I had every right to be at. I lost a sister who was already gone before she sent the text. But I sat on a balcony in a small town on the Atlantic coast with the person who loves me, and I watched the sun go down on a life that no longer required me to be small. That part, no one can take back. I've thought about that Tuesday night more times than I can count. The 11:47 text, the slumber party I wasn't invited to. The phrase, "we love you," attached to an action that wasn't love. And what I keep coming back to is this. Every single thing that happened after that night, every single one, was a consequence of something somebody chose. Nothing was random. Nothing was bad luck. My sister chose to send the text instead of calling me. My mother chose to defend her instead of asking how I was. My sister chose to tell her bridesmaids she was marrying him for the lifestyle. One of those bridesmaids chose to tell the groom's cousin. The cousin chose to tell the grooms. The groom chose to walk away. And somewhere in all of that, I chose to stop swallowing what I had been swallowing for 29 years and book a flight to Lisbon instead. You don't get to skip the consequences of small cruelties just because they were small. That's the thing nobody tells you when you're growing up being the family fixer. You think if you keep absorbing the blows stop. They don't. They just teach the people swinging them that you'll keep absorbing. I want to say something to the version of me who sat on the edge of that bathtub at 11,047 and to anyone else sitting on the edge of their own bathtub right now. Walking away is not the same as giving up. Refusing to attend the show is not the same as losing. When my sister sent that text, she made a math problem out of our relationship. She decided what I was worth in terms of seat count and venue capacity. The only honest response to a math problem is to do the math. I had loaned her $16,000. I had paid for her venue. I had driven 11 hours to Albuquerque. I had been there for every hard thing in her adult life. And she had decided that none of that earned me a chair. So I stopped paying. Not out of revenge, out of arithmetic. The thing I learned in Portugal, on that balcony in Ericeira with the wind coming off the Atlantic, is that being kind to people is not the same as being available to people who treat you badly. Those are two completely different things, and I had been confusing them my whole life. Real kindness has limits. It has to. Otherwise, it's not kindness, it's just self-erasure dressed up in nicer language. If you're reading this and your phone is buzzing with a name that has hurt you too many times to count, please understand, you are allowed to not pick up. You are allowed to book the flight. You are allowed to post the photo. You are allowed to let the people who chose you last find out, for the first time, what it feels like to be chosen last themselves. I didn't burn anything down. I didn't have to. I just stopped pouring water on the fires they kept setting in my living room. And it turned out, without my water, the fires went where fires go. I have a quiet life now. A husband who saw me at my worst week and married me anyway. A father who finally said the words. And a story I tell carefully, when I tell it at all, because I know somebody else is sitting on the edge of their own bathtub tonight, holding their own phone, waiting for permission to put it down. This is your permission.